Hello and welcome to another weekly update. I think probably quite a quick one this week. I'll try and keep it quite short. Enterprise Connect was last week, and lots of big news there. So we're kind of slightly on the downward curve from that. There are a couple of sort of blog posts and things to bring your attention to though. One actually, the first two in fact, about Enterprise Connect that I think are worth pointing out in case you haven't seen them. The first one is a post that Matt Landis put together. Really kind of, he was at Enterprise Connect, and this is his blog post of just Microsoft Teams and Skype for Business observations from Enterprise Connect. So he goes over at sort of fairly high level. It's a good way of just catching everything that happened at Enterprise Connect, detailing the features that are coming later this year for voice and Teams. And then digging down into some detail on some of the device news around Microsoft Teams coming to phone applications. So some good photos in there, there's some good video in there as well, because like I say, Matt was there at Enterprise Connect, he was on stand, and he could go around and have a look at some of these different vendors and play with them. So that was good. I think that's worth a look, especially if you weren't at Enterprise Connect and you haven't seen some of this integration, you haven't seen Teams running on phones. It's a big step forward in the work that Microsoft are doing to bring a lot of those Skype for Business features into Teams, making it work on handheld devices and handsets is a big part of that. So that's all good to see. The other thing I definitely think you should go and do is listen to the latest episode of UC Inside Track, episode number 7, which sees the return of Jamie Stark as the guest, and was recorded at Enterprise Connect, which is interesting because it gives Jamie a chance, Jamie and Pat, to talk through some of those announcements and about what was talked about at Enterprise Connect and where that Microsoft story is going. So that's all definitely worth listening to as well, I think, if you have the chance. The only other thing I want to talk to you about is a blog post that Tom Arbuthnot, fellow MVP and fellow Modality person, put out this week around gathering and viewing client-side traces on Skype for Business client logs. So logs are important, and I've talked about this before, but it's easy as developers in this work, like Skype for Business developers or Teams developers. It's very easy to think of the platform that we're developing for, as being a big black box that we don't necessarily understand and that we can't influence. And in life is, it is how it is. In reality, there's lots of ways we can look under the hood of how Skype for Business runs, and logs are part of that, and client logs are a more specific part of that. And it's important to remember none of this stuff is a black box. If it is, there's always ways of getting inside and seeing what's going on under the hood, and that's what makes you a better developer. It helps you understand why your code isn't running as you expect it to. So that stuff is hopefully interesting, and if you don't know anything about client-side logging for Skype for Business, you are missing out, because when stuff doesn't work, you kind of need to be able to go somewhere. You need to be able to see what's going on. So in his blog post, Tom goes through exactly how you can access and view the Skype for Business client-side logs, and it's a good reminder as well as developers. You should do the same amount of logging. Don't make your application the black box that nobody else can understand, because people will hate it. It's hard to work with, but also every tiny little problem, whether it's your code or just something environmental, will come back to you because nobody understands what it is your application is doing or not doing. Make your application as loggable as possible. Make it as verbose as people want to go and look. It doesn't mean you have to spit out megabytes of log files all the time. That's not the intent at all. But you should have triggers and switches to turn that stuff on should people feel the need to. And if you have a reproducible problem in an application and you don't understand what is happening, it is super useful just to be able to turn those logs all the way up to verbose and just really understand what's going on line by line. So double thumbs up for logging. I think it's really important. And this is a good reminder, this blog post is a good reminder about the importance of logging, in this instance from reading it from Skype for Business. So there's two kind of key takeaways around logging. First, nothing is a black box. You should be able to use your logs to understand what's going on in the Skype for Business world, and the Teams world as well. So Teams has got its own logs as well. Arguably, they are a little harder to find because Teams is a bit more of a black box because it's a service, but the Teams client still has its own logging system. You've got Fiddler to understand what's going on, those HTTP calls in and out. So if you don't know how to use Fiddler, learn how to use Fiddler, or any other HTTP tracing application. But for Skype for Business, those files are stored in a log file, and there are tools to read them. So first key takeaway, nothing is a black box. Use logging to understand what's going on. And secondly, as a developer, don't be that black box. Make sure your application logs properly and well. That was a bit of a rant on logging I hadn't expected to do. But yeah, like I say, a bit on the curve for Enterprise Connect. Not loads and loads of news this week, but still plenty happening that can spill over from Enterprise Connect. So if you're not completely up to date with everything that's happened with Enterprise Connect, it's a good chance to just kind of mop up and understand some of the stuff that happened and the things that were talked about to make sure you didn't miss anything. And then you can use the rest of your time to go and add logs into your application. All right, have a good week and good weekend, and I will talk to you again next time.